Hey everybody, welcome back to Magic Orthodoxy. My name is David, and today you are in for a very special treat because I'm going to show you the second part of my exclusive Erik Tait interview. You probably remember a little while back, Erik and I sat down to talk about Dragon Scale, but what you don't know is that after that, he and I talked about just stuff about his life. And so you're going to get to see how Erik started working for Penguin Magic. You're going to listen to some of his very favorite tricks, his favorite trick deck, and you're going to hear all about his experience with Penn Teller Fool. Let's go. Working at Penguin Magic, that must be awesome. And it probably sounds like a dream job to many. And I guess I would start with like how long you've been at Penguin, how'd that come around? How'd you get the job? Uh, that'd be yeah. What's your origin story, Erik?
What's my origin story? I've been officially at Penguin for around 5 years now, I think.
Okay.
Um, it was uh, so I lived in Columbus, Ohio already, and the P3 Magic Studios and most of the production for Penguin was also coming out of Columbus. So I had been to a lot of the live lectures and was, good friends with Nicola Capo. Just outside of that, we performed on a lot of the same shows together. We were, doing shows in comedy and burlesque and variety shows. And they would, and in the early days of the lectures, when they were starting to do them as shows, they would have me come in as an opening act all the time. So
Wow.
I did shows for like I'm actually the opening act for Richard Turner, um, and my partner is sitting at the table on the left side of the screen on Richard's right. Um, but I do 15, 20 minutes of stand up before Richard Turner comes out and performs. So it's like that happened a lot. And in aside from that, I have been a passionate photographer and videographer as a hobbyist for years. I've filmed and edited, comedy sketches. I do a lot of wildlife photography, so I know my way around a camera, and an editing system. Uh, they're just I wanted to work at Penguin because it seemed like fun, and there just came a day where they needed somebody who could both operate a camera and edit videos.
Mm.
And I, sent them a reel, and they had me audition. I cut my first demo, which was I think Check Poker by Jason Ladany, and then I did my second one was Oil and Water Extreme by Manuel Yasser, and sort of the rest is kind of history. They hired me, and it didn't take long for them to start putting me on the camera.
Mm.
In front of the camera and not just behind it. But
Yeah.
I still do a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So my official title is producer, um, and but that means a lot of stuff. So I host the Penguin podcast, I produce the Penguin podcast, I direct a lot of the tutorials, I shoot a lot of the tutorials, I edit a lot of the tutorials. Um, I work on trick submissions, accepting new material, soliciting new material from people. I work with the
Yeah.
artists for the lectures. I host the lectures. I'm also our archivist. So, as we shoot a lot of video, and I make sure that it all gets stored and sorted correctly. Um, you can't see it, but there's a stack of hard drives actually right here because I'm in the process of doing that right now. I work on our books. I pitch in you wear a lot of hats around here
Yeah.
because Penguin's a big company, but we're not like I think when I hear people go, "Oh, Penguin's the Walmart of Magic," I think that's really disingenuous to Walmart, because because there's way more people in that operation than ours,
Oh
and
yeah.
so it's there's not a lot of people we're doing stuff at Penguin. We're big, but we're not as big as a lot of people think we are. I think we're
Sure.
certainly the largest retailer, but the team is pretty lean, and little people do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I know you have a degree in comedy. Did you ever just do stand up just by itself without magic?
Oh yeah, for years.
Yeah.
Actually, there's an album on iTunes called "Nerd is the New Black," and about once a year, I get a check for around $50 for everyone who has downloaded it. But it's a 30-minute stand-up album of just
Okay.
me talking about stuff. Uh, but yeah, I've done stand-up for years. I've got some great stories in the past where when I was in college, they were filming the movie Man of the Year in Toronto, which is where I went to school. And one night I was in a showcase and I got off stage, and the next comedian to come up was Lewis Black. And then right after Lewis Black, it was Robin Williams. So I was on a stage doing comedy, and then those comedians were, I was opening for them accidentally,
Yeah.
not on purpose.
Oh,
Uh, I've done stand up on all the biggest stages in Los Angeles. I've done stand up in Spain and uh, you know France, and I still do a little bit, but I'm primarily focused on magic these days.
yeah. Does that mean that when we see the P3 guys at a Starbucks, that's one in Ohio, like right around where you guys live?
Yeah, it's Columbus is like weirdly famous in the magic world because of how many demos we make, and how many tricks we put out. So it's always fun when Magi Fest rolls around, because we those are like our local bars and clubs and restaurants.
Yeah.
And magicians will come in to the convention a day or two early and be like, oh, I want to find that bar. Where's Pins Mechanical? Where's the Old North Arcade?
Yeah,
um,
the arcade with the pizza stuff. Yeah.
yeah, like that's right next door to the
For
studio.
Magi Fest?
No, not to Magi Fest, but to
Oh,
the studio that Penguin
to the
has,
studio. Sure.
our theater,
Yeah.
and where our brick and mortar magic shop is.
How do
Uh,
you populate the audience for the theater?
we sell tickets
Oh,
through
really?
Eventbrite. The theater has its own Facebook page, which is the marketing is targeted very local.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
for years, the shows were free. We did a free show every Tuesday night for 7 years. And the only reason that stopped because of COVID.
Mm.
Um, and so every Tuesday night at 6 p.m., people would start lining up for a 7 p.m. show. And there's that, if you look at the Penguin Live lectures, there's that shot of like people walking down the street. Like that's real. That's what it was like every Tuesday in in at Penguin Magic. So the community knows we're here. Um, and so we when we remodeled, the theater is much more high tech now. It's got a full lighting package, pro quality audio. We run it on QLab. We got you know project stuff, do all kinds of things. I mean, it's very much of a real working theater. And so now the tickets cost money, but it's a little bit of a different experience when you go in. There's risers now. The show's got a lot of production value, and you enter through a secret door, which is really fun. So it's neat. But yeah, we market to the community here locally. I mean, Columbus is a big city. We're the 13th largest city in the country. There's a lot of people here who want to see a lot of magic.
Cool. I know you have the Eric Tate Live. You got any other things coming up in the future that's going to be a Eric Tate
Oh,
exclusive?
oh, like a release, like for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
You don't have to give
um,
anything away.
no, so there is this is a Magic Orthodoxy exclusive. Um, I have been doing the magnetized cards effect in my stage show for years now, and there's basically two ways to do it, which is either with a PK ring or with a gaffed card that requires you to build
Mm.
the stack on your hand, and then you can turn it over. Um, and I found a third way. And so there is a trick coming out called Gasp, that is going to be my handling of the magnetized cards. And I'm very excited about it because
Awesome.
it's a huge piece in my show. It's my second physical release. Um, so that's happening. And then I have been actively working on my own book for many years now. And I think that I'm in a position where I can actually like start to move towards publishing it. I can't give a deadline, but I have two active books that I've been working on, that I think will come out at some point. If not next year, then the year after. I just have to sort of sit down and finish editing it is really kind of
That's
where
awesome.
it is.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome.
so that's the stuff from me. Um, Otherwise, I'm kind of working on like my live show. So I'm real excited to do the IBM convention in Tacoma because I'm going to be doing my stand-up set material, which not a lot of magicians have seen, and I think
Yeah.
arguably lay audiences are like really into that these days. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, hey, earlier in the other video, or when
Mhm.
we're doing it, you mentioned see, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. So it's is it, did you say Azar? Acre?
A
Acer?
jar, a jar,
Just Yar?
a jar. So
Jar.
like as in like and
Yeah?
then jar as in like a mason jar.
Oh, okay.
It's a Turkish name, so it's
Okay.
spelled ACAR, but the C is
Yeah.
pronounced like a J.
Yeah. The old Penguin YouTube channel was like A-Rat or something like that.
Yeah,
And would see this his name,
yeah,
but like, is he the owner?
yes, yeah. He's the
Okay.
owner. Yeah,
Is
a
he a
jar.
magician?
He is.
Okay. Have
He's he,
I don't know if he's ever popped up in a Penguin anything that I would recognize him.
you have definitely seen him. He's released material under a pen name
Oh,
that I'm
okay.
not at liberty to divulge.
No, no, yeah, no, no, yeah. I
Yeah,
guess he's like the guy behind the scenes. Like I'm always curious, like who's Acar or
yeah.
Acer? Yeah.
Yeah, so he's he's the owner of the company, the founder of the company, one of the founders, and has been
Okay.
doing stuff. He sees a lot of magic. He does a lot of magic. I would describe him as, and I think he would describe himself this way too, as an enthusiastic hobbyist.
Is
Like
he
he
in
don't,
Ohio?
no, he's in Michigan.
Oh, he's in Michigan.
Yes.
And then your warehouse is in Sacramento?
Yeah, our warehouse is like back to back with the Murphy's warehouse. There's a
Yeah.
truck that actually goes between the two every day because you can't buy directly from Murphy's, so you have to
Yeah.
buy from a dealer, and we're at the
Yeah.
dealer level. So
Yeah, I've
so
I've been to Murphy's warehouse. I've been there physically. I mean, I used to live in Sacramento.
oh, okay, yeah.
I've been to Murphy's, and then when we were there visiting, my wife said, "Oh, you should stop by Penguin," and I'm like, I have no idea where Penguin is.
We're like across the street, I think. Um, I
That's
want to say
funny.
we might even share a parking lot. Um,
Oh, really?
because the Murphy's, Vanishing Ink, and Penguin warehouses are all like you could hit them all with a rock if you were standing in one place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Second question.
Mhm.
So when you're just getting into magic, you're starting out, you're starting to be like, "Ooh, I want to be a magician." Like, who do you remember as being some of your either favorite magicians or influences? Like, who do you remember like watching certain, VHS tapes of, or just feeling like, "Ooh, yeah, I want to be like so and so."
It's an easy answer. There were three magicians that were extremely influential early on with me. The first is obviously Leonard Green. His performance on World's Greatest Magic 4 left a giant impact on me. I think people don't quite remember how influential and how big a deal those specials were. I mean, those were like Thanksgiving weekend, and the whole country sat down and watched those,
Oh yeah.
and it was enormous. Um, so seeing him, so when I really got into magic in my teens, I immediately was like, and I fell in love with card tricks. I was like, I got to go back and find that guy. Um, and so that led me down the Green Magic series, volumes 1 through 6. Juliana Chen has always been an influence. While I practice card manipulation, but I don't do it in my show. Um, Seeing her show and understanding the importance of body position and uh, deliberate movement had a really big impact on me. And the very first magic convention I ever went to, the Winter Carnival of Magic in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, the starring act that like the headliner who did his show and is the first lecture I ever saw was Simon Lovell. And I wanted to be Simon Lovell so bad after I saw him.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm I think I still have a quote on my website from Simon Lovell because I was like 19 and I was in a magic competition where I had a spoon bending act and I was like people told me I had to get quotes from performers and so I like wrote to Simon and asked him for a quote for my act because he had seen it in the competition because I took second place. And I think that is still on my website. I think I still use that. So it's wild for that. But those are the three big ones. And
Awesome.
yeah, in the early days.
Yeah.
And then Jay Sankey was really putting out a lot of material at the time. So I
Oh
learned a lot
yeah.
of stuff from Jay Sankey, and Oz Perlman. Some of my first purchases were from Penguin Magic. When I was just finishing up high school. So Oz
Yeah.
Perlman taught me a
All of
lot of
us.
magic. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
yeah.
My other question is like a just a quickie. I don't know if you saw the list it, but I mean you can
Hmm.
think about it. Probably,
Yeah.
you probably already did think about it. But so I'm not saying you're on a deserted island because that'd be strange because you'd be the only one there. But like let's say you got off a plane
Yeah.
and you didn't have anything, you can't go find a magic store. If I were gonna give you one, and we'll call it gimmicked or gaffed,
Hmm.
either way, you could pick any word you want.
Hmm.
You get one gimmick deck or one gaff deck to perform magic with. That's all you got. What are you picking?
Stripper deck.
A stripper deck?
Yeah. For almost a decade, I was very quietly using a very particular kind of stripper work that is not published in many places and it's not talked about very much.
Mhm.
And I have started to talk about it more. And if you want to see me talk about negative stripper work a lot, check out Mark Calabre's Penguin Live 3. Um, but I can work with a wedge stripper. I can work with anything. Sort of jokes around the office that Nick's the Svengali worker and I'm the stripper worker, and between the two of us, those are that's all we need. But yeah, stripper deck is the way to go.
Yeah, because it's so multifaceted in the fact that it is a normal deck.
Hmm.
So any trick you could do with a normal deck, you can do with this.
Yeah,
But then you could also
you
cut
could do.
all your sleights in half because of just the nature of it.
Well, I
Yeah,
think that the stripper deck is interesting to me because I remember selling them at a magic shop, and like you never really used them the way we're supposed to be used. I mean, stripper decks come from the gambling world. They're
right.
supposed to be used to control sets of cards. And so when magicians perform, typically we're not working seated doing sort of tabled riffle shuffle stuff, but that's where the stripper deck shines. So if you can get to the point where you're doing that stuff, I mean, you can do real miracles with a stripper deck if you're working, at a table. And
Yeah.
so and understanding that kind of changes the way your relationship with the stripper deck is. At least mine anyway.
You have the tool. Can you make your own?
Oh yeah. I am an unabashed fan of Owen O'Hare's devious devices. I've got his stripper jig, I got his corner shorts. I've got multiple copies of the I've got most of his tools. I can't think of a better set of tools in the world. And I collect vintage tools. I wish I had it here because it's a portable uh, card trimmer from
Yeah.
the KC Card Co. It's this giant block of brass with a pair of scissors screwed onto the side, and then these little micrometers that like will change the angle, and so then you can use it like a pair of like so you can put a card in, snip it, take it out, and it'll make a stripper deck.
Wow.
Um, I mean, it probably weighs 30 pounds. So I mean, but it was made, 80, 100 years ago. So it's
Yeah.
portable for them. I've got Todd Lassen stuff. I've got Dr. X stuff. I collect, vintage gambling devices stuff, and the trimmers especially are something that I'm fascinated by. So I'm
Awesome.
always playing with
Thanks.
that stuff. Yeah.
That's cool. So you want to talk about Foolish a little bit?
Sure.
And what was it? It was like season 5, episode 7. And
Yes.
live you were back when it was before COVID, like live audience, like
Oh
actual
yeah.
people out there. I know they've
Yeah.
gone back to it now, but you can definitely see the differences in the and Allison Hannigan
Hmm.
also. So just I know people think about that, and then magicians, this is like, ooh, you aspire to, like, I want to go on Foolish. Like how what's the audition process like? How as far as you can, give
Hmm.
away, but like how hard is it to get on Foolish?
I think the audition process is pretty transparent with them. There's a
Mhm.
there's an email that you send video of what you want to do to them, and uh, that I sent an email with the video for the Monty, and they emailed back and were like, "Oh, this is kind of interesting, but the you flash in a couple of places. This will never get past the magic guys. Can you just shoot it again so that we can show it to them?" So I worked really hard to get a very clean video,
Mm.
um, and sent them that. And then I didn't hear anything for like months. And then suddenly I got an email in my inbox saying, "Hey, we're formally inviting you to come perform. You're going to be in touch with these people." And the next thing I knew, I was on a plane to Vegas with my table and ready to tape it. I think that the harder thing is having a trick that is good for the television show. I don't represent Fool Us, and I don't, and I don't speak for the producers, but I have to imagine that they see a ton of card tricks. So if you really want to get on Fool Us, don't send them a card trick. And that's funny coming out of my, because they're like, "You did a card trick," and I'm like, "Not really. I didn't really do a card trick. I did something where
Right.
objects vanished and they vanished and transformed, and it's just cards happen to be the medium that I was using."
Yeah.
Um, so I think that I think not doing a card trick is important, and then also like keeping in mind like who the demographic of the show is. And I think anytime that you want to get on a television show, it's important to look at the highest rated show on that network and figure out what the demographic for that show is. And at the time
Yeah.
that I was on Fool Us, the biggest show on the CW was Riverdale. So
Mm.
in my head, I'm like, I need to be able to appeal to fans of the show Riverdale because those are the kinds of people who are going to be tuning in to Fool Us. Now, whether
Yeah.
or not any of that is true, I don't know, but it was the strategy I used, and I got on. So
Yeah. And when you saw your show on TV, was that kind of like, do you remember like, oh yeah, that's how it all went? Or did it seem really disconnected? Like, oh wow, they cut this around and moved it around and made it like, were you on the same, was your show the same people that you performed with that night? The same other magicians?
no, actually, I did a podcast interview today with Christian Engblom because I filmed with Christian Engblom, the Sentimentalists,
Yeah.
uh, and
Oh.
then there's a guy from England who was the iPad magician at the time, and
Oh yeah. Okay.
I can't, and I'm blanking on his name, and I feel bad.
Yeah.
But the four of us filmed together, and two of us fooled him, and two of us didn't. And the Sentimentalists were like the first act that season.
Mm.
Um, and I was like, "Oh, I'm actually in that episode. I'm just underneath the stage, and no one can see me." So, uh,
Oh, how interesting.
yeah. What was really disconnected was I felt like I did terribly. I
Mm.
felt like they didn't like me. I felt like the audience didn't laugh or anything like that. And that is just sort of negative self-talk and self-spiraling because when it came
Yeah.
out, like it was great. We had a watch party in this speakeasy in Columbus that was like in this basement. And there was, I think there was like 200 people jammed into this place all to watch it. And I didn't expect to be the first act on the episode.
Oh.
So the show, so I mean, like my memory of it is the show starts, suddenly my name is on the screen. Everybody in the room goes crazy. They watch my act, and then everyone is like, "How the hell did you do that? There's no way that you didn't fool them."
Yeah.
Uh, and then what I was really concerned about was I didn't think I was going to air because when I left the stage, I walk backwards, waving to them, and I trip over the chair that Allison Hannigan is in. And I mean, I like windmill off the stage, like go, keister over tea kettle. And they very graciously edited that out in a in a way that makes me look like I'm leaving the stage like a normal human. So I have nothing but wonderful things to say about them.
I've even watching it back, I think like you should have felt good. I mean, it must have felt good as a performer to be able to stand there and to hear Penn say words like perfect
Yeah,
and clean. Like
yeah.
that should feel great, all right?
It did at the time, and it still does.
Yeah.
But I think that that routine is pretty hardcore, and there's a lot of angles that it doesn't work at. And actually, I think in the edit there is a shot from like a camera on the ground, like it like looks like an interesting shot, and it's just there for like half a second or something like that. But it's like it's just the perfect angle to see me palming a card.
Mm.
And it's one of those where it was like, oh man, I wish I'd known that there was a camera there because I would have changed it up a little bit. And I hadn't been doing the routine for a very long time at that point. I taped Fool Us before I won the IBM with it, so I'd really only done the routine like for an audience like a handful of times. So it was pretty nerve wracking to do
Yeah, so
something.
that was FISM, right? In
It's the same. It is very similar to the act that I did at FISM.
Yeah. And
It
FISM came second?
FISM I came third, but
No, no,
FISM
no,
was
it
like,
came later. It came
oh
later.
yes,
It's later in
yeah,
the timeline. Yeah.
yeah, 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 much
Yeah.
later, like 5 years later. I
Oh,
had
wow. Okay.
yeah, I had it well under my belt at that time,
Okay.
and uh, we actually we changed a lot of the choreography. So if you watch the FISM version and the Fool Us version, uh, they look identical. The script is
Right.
even almost the same,
Yeah.
but they operate completely differently. In the FISM one, my hands never go below the table. Uh,
Mm,
so the method completely changed for FISM.
yeah. Which one was scarier to do? Penn and
Oh,
Teller or FISM?
they were both terrifying, but in very different ways. FISM was scary just because uh, competition at that level is stressful and expensive, and you want to do stuff, you want to win. But I also went into FISM, and I've said this on many occasions. I went into FISM thinking I just want to participate. I never thought I would be at this level. I just want to participate with people who everyone claims is the best magicians in the world. I I'm not going to win. Some 14-year-old Dutch kid that no one's ever heard of is going to win everything, because that's what always happens. uh, and so winning a prize was a huge, like, I couldn't believe that I won a prize. It
Yeah.
was flabbergasting. Fool Us was just different because it was like, I'm going to be on TV. I had no experience with well-known magicians. I mean, like, never. I wasn't working for Penguin. I hadn't released anything. I was pretty much a hobbyist
Yeah.
back then, and so I was a capable performer, but I was like, that's Penn and Teller. Like, this is real. I had to work with Michael Close and Johnny Thompson. I had to talk to Michael Close. I had to talk to Johnny Thompson. I'd never done anything like that before. I mean, you're watching a very green performer when I'm on Fool Us. So it's,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, you'd never think it.
I had a very good team around me who really took care of me and got me through it. These kinds of things are not done by individuals; they're done by teams, and I had some of the best helping me out.
Mm. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah,
thank you for sharing your story.
yeah, of course.
So my last question, or my question to you, since you work at Penguin, you see a bunch of stuff come across your desk, and you've got to have a favorite. I don't mean a long-term favorite. I mean current. So like, what's your current favorite P3 trick right now? And then if you can, what's your favorite non P3 trick right now?
Well, obviously, Ultra Lucky Coin by Erik Tait. Everyone should order 5 of them. No,
I
serious,
have it. I have it.
excellent, yay! Uh, I'm very pleased with the fact that that continues to be popular with the community, and I'm just blown away by the support for it. So
Good trick.
it is deeply humbling how many people like it and perform it. Um, and so I appreciate that. My favorite P3 trick. Uh, it always changes, but the one I always come back to that I know everyone slept on was Flight 101 by Roddy McGee.
Oh yeah.
That is far and away one of the best tricks for workers. I own 5 of them because if I ever lose one or we ever stop making it, I never don't want to have this. And what the effect is a borrowed ring vanishes and then reappears on borrowed spectators' keys.
Yeah.
And everyone who has, come up to me and seen it, when they like look at the gimmick, they're like, "Oh, but I really like Flight." And I'm like, "Yeah, but those aren't
Yeah.
borrowed keys. Those are still
Right.
your keys."
Your keys.
And so it's like, if you're doing Ring Flight and you're not doing Flight 101, you better be doing Dave Bonsel's ring flight revolution, because that is the best ring. That's the Cadillac of ring flights. Because Dave has got everything figured out right there. But if you want to do
Yeah.
ring flight and you don't want to have things whipping around your body, you don't want to worry about, losing the ring or, the reel snapping. There's no moving parts. It's really easy to do. And it's one of the single most powerful tricks that I do in walk around close up. Whenever I'm gigging, I always have Flight 101 on me. And I think a lot of people slept on it. And
Oh yeah.
it's super good. I do a lot of P3 stuff like in my show. I use The Awakening by Dan Harlan. It is so much fun to do. I, for a while, was using Vanishing Card by Nicholas Lawrence in my show. Uh,
Oh yeah.
Great trick. I have a restaurant gig that I do on a regular basis, and I'm constantly slipping new P3 tricks in to test them before we release them. But there's also ones that have become my mainstay. I do Chop by Craig Petty in my restaurant gig and in my stage show. I love Chop.
That trick is so good. It is
It
so
is
good.
it is awesome, and
Yeah.
Craig does not get nearly enough credit for how
Yeah.
wonderful the routining is on that. Um, it's become my closer for my restaurant set. My
Yeah.
routine's a little bit different. I'm not doing a lemon as a final load. I have a cat because my presentation is about Schrodinger's cat, but uh, it's a great trick.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I've heard some people say like, "Oh, yeah, it'd be better if you didn't have to use the pen is so distracting." And I'm like, "Have you seen a chop cup routine?
no,
Do you, do you know how
no,
those go? Like the pen is not distracting at all. Like if you do this right, it's 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 almost makes it more organic. Like it's
yeah.
it's the greatest chop cup trick there is. Like it's so good.
Well, and let me tell you this: you can do chop cup with a borrow cup and a PK ring, but people think, oh, the ring might be magnetic. No
Right.
one thinks the pen is magnetic. Um,
Exactly.
it's and my so this is I'm getting real in the nitty gritty. I know these are supposed to be quick, but I had I had custom chop gimmicks made for my show because I have a Sherpa and I have the marker cover to make your Sharpies all fancy looking, and
Hmm.
I use a red Sharpie marker in all of my work because I like to sign low black spot cards and I like the signature to stand out a lot. But if you put a red Sharpie in a Sherpa, the tip of it is the plastic tip on the Sharpie sticks out the end and it's red, and I think that's ugly. So I before when I have to put a new marker together, I take apart a black Sharpie, I take apart a red Sharpie, and I swap the inks so that it will be black and look nice. And then I had that done and made with chop gimmicks. So all of my Sherpas are both chopped and red, but they look black and they match my suits for stuff. I mean, like I am very specific about that. But I had multiple custom chops made for my show because that's how much I love that trick.
That's cool.
Mhm.
And do you have a favorite non P3 trick?
Yes, there is. There's a couple of different ones that I love. I have been doing um, the book test word in a million.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I have been doing that for 20 years. And I have I tip my work on my presentation in my Penguin live act lecture. And it's arguably one of my stronger routines, I think. And I love Word in a Million. It's really good. It's a fantastic impression device.
Yeah.
Um, I highly recommend it. I also, I did a top 10 video for Penguin, and my favorite trick of this year was On Edge by Angelo Carbone.
Yeah.
Um, I think that trick is brilliant. I think the teaching of it's brilliant. I think the product is brilliant.
Mhm.
Uh, I love that. I haven't gotten to put it in my show yet, but oh, it is really really good.
Yeah.
Those are I think those two of the non P3 tricks I think are my favorites.
Word in a Million was the very first trick I ever did on a stage.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And when you get it and you're like, this is what it is. This is like the it's my it's like it's a great impression device, and
Yeah.
it's so good, and it solves all the problems of
Yeah.
wanting to use carbon paper and that kind of stuff, making it reset. I mean, I've been using the same gaff for 20 years.
Yep.
It's so good.
Yep. Mine is currently in a book, and I have forgotten which book it's in. Because I have a huge library at my office,
Yeah,
and it's probably like 3 panels long,
yeah,
and I know it's in there somewhere, but I can't remember the last book I put it in.
that's funny.
So,
Um, yeah, it's mine's in Steve Martin's Born Standing Up, but it's in my show,
oh,
and I know where it is. It's great,
so,
great trick.
all right. Thank you for doing these for me. Thanks. That was
Of
a
course.
lot of fun. All right, so that's everything. I hope that was enjoyable for you to watch. I hope it was informative. Big, huge thanks to Erik Tait and penguinmagic.com. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.